Hello, my name is Dylan Hensley, and the topic that I chose for my informative speech is the challenges that the First Amendment faces in our modern society. The First Amendment is the most important amendment in the United States and also the main amendment that makes us a free country. The single reason that we are allowed to believe and practice any religion we want, to make our political opinions public, to have the freedom of assembly, and to have the right to petition is all because the First Amendment allows us to, while also forbidding the government from promoting and restricting our religious and personal beliefs. The credibility that I have on this topic is that I've taken American law, and business law, along with studying this in my own free time and also the sources that I use for the speech. Slander, defamation, violence, and hate crimes threatens the sanctity of American citizens' right to express their First Amendment. The people that bring these problems forth are normally sensitive and politically outspoken people. Freedom of speech is being challenged by the sensitive people in these sensitive times because people think that people's rights ends where others' feelings get hurt. However, this is not the case. People still have the right, but they face consequences from the people that are trying to limit their speech. The people that threaten this right pick and choose what they want to hear, and they put the people on the spot, but they only put them on the spot for something that makes them look bad, taking away from the actual conclusion of the free speech. The people using free speech sometimes face slander and defamation, which is the act of damaging someone's reputation. If such person has their professional career or professional reputation damaged, they can take their right to take legal action and sue their antagonist. Slander and defamation cases are very hard to win unless you hire a pro lawyer that specializes in this field. Consequently, hiring one of these lawyers can be very costly, and it can be hard to get any money out of the lawsuit because you are already in debt from paying for the lawyer in the first place. Defamation and slander are scary to people that have professional reputations and also just normal citizens because, as Benjamin Franklin once said, it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation and only one bad one to lose it. Although these people can attack your money and your reputation, they can also attack your person. Violence is a big problem for the people that express their First Amendment right. At things like protests and rallies, when people of opposing sides are protesting their opinion, people have a hard time being civil and use violence to silence the voices of the people that they do not agree with. A lot of the time, people bluff and only threaten violence upon people, but even this is enough to silence people's rights. People get their rights confused because they are allowed to protest their opinions, but when they get violent, the police can shut them down. When the police do this, they think that they are restricting their rights, but they only have the right to protest peacefully. If they are not protesting peacefully, the police can use force to shut them down. The idea of protesting in recent decades, along with even just the past year, has become not a safe place, but also a scary and dangerous environment. In Charlottesville, Virginia, protests were held to remove the statue of Robert E. Lee. However, a white supremacist group also held a rally by the statue to try and keep the statue up. The two groups that were opposing about the statue tried to silence each other instead of acknowledging their rights, and one person ended up dying. A person of the white supremacist party rammed a car through a crowd, killing one person. These extremist actions threaten the very way of life in our country. Our First Amendment right is what lets our country have a democracy. Without this right, there would be no elections, no voting polls, because the citizens would have no say in the government. This would make the government like a dictatorship, not allowing the people to disagree with the government. People trying to limit our freedom of speech threatens the sanctity of our democracy. Countries like North Korea have heavy restrictions of freedom of speech. In fact, they sometimes have no freedom of speech at all. In North Korea, if a person does not mourn the death of a ruler's family at the mandatory ceremony, they will be jailed and probably put to death. They will also face death for even just disagreeing with the ruler. These are the various reasons we need to work harder to recognize and address these issues on the First Amendment. Overall, the main point of the speech was to make people more aware of how our First Amendment right is being threatened by the people trying to limit it. Again, the specific purpose of this informative speech is to explain how things like slander, hate crimes, violence, and facing career-ending problems threatens people's freedom to express their First Amendment right. In conclusion, our first and most important right is being threatened, and the limiting of this right needs to be addressed more directly so that the limiting can stop. Thank you.